Okay, let's take this question. I think this is from NEET 2021 paper. So what is happening here? A small block slides down a smooth inclined plane starting from rest at t equals to 0. And let Sn be the distance traveled by the block in the interval t equals to n minus 1 to t equals to n. Then we have to find the ratio Sn is to Sn plus 1. That is, we have to find this ratio. Now, let me draw the diagram for this question. Okay, this is the block which is on an inclined plane, and then at t equals to 0, it starts from rest. So we can say at t equals to 0, its initial velocity is 0. That is, we can say, uh, yes, initial velocity, we can say u or v naught, whatever you want to write, is 0. Now, if Sn be the distance traveled by the block in the time interval n minus 1 to n, so let's say this block travels up to this point in time t equals to n minus 1, and it comes here in time t equals to n. So this distance is Sn. Now, with the similar argument, we can say if this block comes here at t equals to n plus 1, then this distance should be n Sn plus 1. So we have to find the ratio of these two distances, Sn and Sn plus 1. So let's take its motion. Let's take up to here. This one is x1, starting from rest, starting from its initial point. If this block travels up to x1 in time n minus 1, and let's say this distance, let me redraw it for clarity. So here we have the diagram. This block starts from here and it slides down along this plane, and this inclined plane is smooth. That is, there is no friction. So let's take this distance to be x1 and this distance to be x2, and let's say this distance to be x3. So, and from the question, this distance is Sn and this distance is Sn plus 1. And we have to find the ratio of these two distances, Sn by Sn plus 1. Okay, so this Sn is nothing but x2 minus x1, and this Sn plus 1 is nothing but x3 minus x2. Now the only thing we have to do here is to calculate these distances. So how can we proceed? As we know, S equals to ut plus half at square, where u is initial velocity, a is acceleration, and t is time. So here u is 0, so this term is not going to contribute. Finally, we have distance is half at square. Next thing, we have to calculate or determine what is the acceleration in this body. So to get this value of acceleration or expression for this acceleration, we have to know the forces on this block, and the only force acting on this block is mg, that is weight. And of course, there is normal reaction force also, but we are talking about that force which is causing acceleration in this body, and due to that acceleration, this body starts its motion towards the inclined plane, towards this inclination. So mg is the force, but look here, the component of mg along this inclined plane is the responsible for its acceleration. So let's take this inclination to be theta. So if we are taking the component of this mg perpendicular to this inclined plane, this angle will be theta, and this will be mg cos theta, and this force will be balanced by normal force provided by this inclined plane. So these two forces are not going to contribute in its acceleration. So the only force which is mg sine theta. This component of the gravitational force on this body is going to contribute. So force we have here mg sine theta, and from this force we can calculate acceleration, and that acceleration will be g sine theta. And now we have to find out this x1, x2, and x3, and then we have to put the values. So what is happening here? X1 will be, as time is n minus 1 for this distance x1, so x1 will be half g sine theta n minus 1 square. X2 will be half g sine theta n square, and x3 will be half g sine theta n plus 1 whole square. So x2 minus x1, which is Sn, x2 minus x1 will be x2 minus x1 half g sine theta. This thing is common. And then we have n square minus n minus 1 whole square. And this thing can be written as n square minus n square plus 2n minus 1. And that 2n plus 2n minus 1. This is x2 minus x1. And now x3 minus x2 will be, of course, there is a factor here of half g sine theta. Let's take this factor to be simply g prime. So there is factor here, g prime. Now this will be g prime. Remember, this g prime is nothing but half g sine theta. X3, that is n plus 1 whole square minus n square. This is x3 minus x2. And if we calculate, here will be 2n plus 1, n square plus 2n plus 1, and n square will be cancelled out with this negative n square. So here we will have gn g prime 2n plus 1. And as we know, this x2 minus x1 divided by this x3 minus x2 is the ratio of Sn divided by Sn plus 1. So if we are going to take ratio of these two things, this g prime here and g prime here are going to be cancelled out, and then we will have 2n minus 1 divided by 2n plus 1. So coming back to the previous slide, this x2 minus x1 is g prime 2n minus 1 divided by this one g prime 2n plus 1. So the final ratio is 2n minus 1 divided by 2n plus 1.